Hello, everybody. I see it is 2 o'clock Central European summertime here on my computer, so I thought I would start. Welcome to our launch webinar on the Deep Sea Knowledge for Effective Ocean Management for the launch of the European Marine Board Future Science Brief on deep sea research and management needs. Maybe I should say, my name is Sheila Heymans. I'm the Executive Director of the European Marine Board, and I will be the moderator today. But starting with a few housekeeping rules, please make sure that your name is clearly written and entered onto the slide so that we know who you are when we see your questions. Please use the Q&A, which should be at the bottom of your screen or in the 3 dots to ask the questions. And in those, please also tell us which organization you're from, which country you're from. And I will, after the presentations, go through the questions and ask them to the speakers. If you have any technical issues, please use the chat function. And please be aware that the webinar is being recorded and will be made available on our website and on our YouTube channel after the fact. So agenda for today, so just a welcome for everybody here from myself, and then we will go straight into the launch of the document. So it will be presented by the chair and the co-chair, Silvia Sander and Christian Tamburini, who are the chairs of the document. We also have some of the other authors here, so they will also be able to help answering any questions. Then we will have a presentation on the BBNJ agreement by Charlotte Salpin, who is a senior legal officer from Dualos, who will actually be giving us a presentation on the BBNJ, which will be able to shape our discussions. Then we will have a response from the European Commission. Adriana Brogiatio, who is from DG Mare, the International Relations Officer, will give us a response. And we will have a response from the international community from Ricardo Serrano Santos, who is a co-chair of the International Scientific Committee of the Global Deep Sea Consultation for the Towards IPOS project. And then we will have a discussion afterwards, which I will moderate with the speakers and the members of the working group that helped write this document. We will have some closing remarks by our chair, the European Marine Board Chair, Fiona Grant from the Marine Institute, at about 25 minutes after 3, and we should be done by 3 o'clock. So without further ado, I will stop sharing and Sylvia will be able to share her screen.
There we go. You see this right?
Yes, it's
perfect.
Thanks.
Well, yeah, this Future Science Brief is highlighting why the deep sea matters and what we must do to sustain this ecosystem functioning. Welcome to all. I'm Sylvia Sander, and I'm a professor for marine mineral resources at the GMR Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research. And together with Christian Tamburini from the French Institut Méditerranée d'Océanologie and the CNRS, we are presenting the outcomes of the European Marine Board's Future Science Brief number 12 on the deep sea research and management needs. This Future Science Brief explores the complexity of the deep sea and its role in ocean health today. It highlights the critical ecosystem services and functions it provides. It underscores the risks to ocean health in the face of climate change and direct human impacts on the deep sea. It navigates the complex legal landscape and management issues. It discusses the challenges of studying the deep sea and identifies significant knowledge gaps in biological, biogeochemical, physical, and geological deep sea science, and in the spatial and temporal variability of the deep sea. And finally, it provides recommendations for sustainable deep sea protection and better collaboration. This work was developed by the European Marine Board Working Group on Deep Sea and Ocean Health which myself and Christian had the privilege to chair together. This initiative was led by a multidisciplinary group of experts from across Europe, whose names and affiliations you see here on this slide. They are oceanographers, ecologists, geologists, legal scholars, and much more. And our combined perspective allowed us to address the deep sea from every angle, scientific, legal, and societal. While I extend my sincere thanks to all members of the working group for their outstanding engagement throughout this process, I would particularly like to highlight the exceptional dedication and tireless effort of Sabine Gollner. And I'm also deeply grateful to Brian Guyot for her invaluable contribution to the legal aspects of deep sea and ocean health, a dimension we initially really underestimated, but which proved to be absolute fundamental. But let's start from the basics. The deep sea begins below 200 meters and extends all the way down to the deepest trench at nearly 1100 meters. It makes up 90% of the ocean's volume. Despite its massive extent, it remains one of the least explored and understood parts of the planet. From volcanoes to ancient life forms, it is as alien as outer space, but right here on Earth. The deep sea is filled with wonders: canyons, seamounts, volcanic ridges, cold seeps, and hydrothermal vents, to name but a few geological features. It is also home to the largest daily migration of life on Earth. These ecosystems are as rich and dynamic as any tropical rainforest, but largely out of sight. And yet, we all rely on the deep sea and the ecosystem services it provides. It regulates climate, carbon sequestration, and deoxygenation. For example, 90% of excess heat and 25% of anthropogenic CO2 emissions are taken up by the ocean. It supports biodiversity and the biogeochemical cycling of nutrients, oxygen, and trace metals. It provides food and non-living resources, such as oil and gas. It holds genetic resources for future medicines and industry. And at the same time, the deep sea provides many cultural and social services, but also aesthetic and spiritual benefits, which often take second place. However, many of these benefits are still poorly understood or undervalued. Managing the deep sea is extremely complex. It falls under various legal regimes, from exclusive economic zones to areas beyond national jurisdiction. With new agreements like the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, also known as the BBNJ agreement, there is an opportunity to unify fragmented efforts in ocean governance, science, capacity building, and conservation. But challenges remain, as the BBNJ agreement must be ratified by at least 60 states before entering into force. However, today only 21 countries have ratified it. Unfortunately, our impacts are increasing and increasingly affecting offshore and deeper waters. Climate change is warming, acidifying, and deoxygenating deep waters, disrupting species metabolism, reproduction, and long-term ecosystem stability. These stressors can persist for centuries. Overexploitation from deep-sea fishing, bottom trawling, and resource extraction cause long-term damage to fragile, slow-growing species and habitats. Microplastic, heavy metals, chemicals, and underwater noise pollution reach even the deepest parts of the ocean, often interacting with other stressors in unprecedented ways. Emerging and future industry, such as deep-sea mining and marine carbon dioxide removal, also called MCDR, are advancing despite limited knowledge of their long-term ecosystem impacts. Multiple pressures rarely act in isolation. Often these pressures have cumulative and synergistic environmental effects, which we even more struggle to fully understand. Part of the difficulty lies in its unique complexity, and it's associated with its four-dimensional nature, 3D space plus time, with an interconnectivity that is all too often overlooked. From micrometers to hundreds of kilometers and from seconds to centuries, the deep sea spans huge variability in environmental, biological, and chemical processes. Therefore, managing the deep sea requires a systems-based dynamic approach. Apart from its incredible complexity, other factors hinder us from understanding the deep sea. Exploring the deep sea requires specialized high-tech equipment. Autonomous undersea vehicles, AUVs, remote operated vehicles, ROVs, deep sea observatories, seabed crawlers, an increasing and real-time sensing network, and molecular technologies. Some of these tools are shown here, and they allow us to glimpse the deep, but each comes with significant constraints, limited spatial and temporal coverage, high operational costs, and enormous logistic efforts. With other words, we have the technology, but not yet the scale, reach, or permanence needed for the kind of deep sea insight we urgently require. Studying the deep sea is tough. High pressures, low temperatures, and remote locations make access difficult. Organisms living at 10,000 meter depths at 2 degrees usually don't survive being brought up to the sea surface. Neither can many materials or technologies used for coastal studies withstand these high pressures. We also face gaps in qualified research personnel, limited data infrastructure, and legacy samples that don't meet modern standards. This hinders our ability to act now. And what we don't know is staggering. We lack basic biodiversity inventories, the roles of deep sea processes like hydrothermal venting on biogeochemical cycles, and insights into carbon cycling, data on how deep sea currents are changing, and detailed maps of the seafloor. We can't protect what we don't understand. On top of the scientific challenges, we face governance ones. Legal fragmentation, slow implementation, and suboptimal coordination between regimes make effective management incredibly difficult. The science policy gap remains wide. This leads to blind spots, poor baseline knowledge, inconsistent environmental assessments, and policy decisions that fail to reflect the reality of the deep sea. We need adaptive, coherent, evidence-based governance. But there is hope. Global momentum is growing. The BBNJ agreement, UN Ocean Decade, and EU's mission to restore our ocean provide new platforms for action. We must align governance, science, and funding to seize this moment. And with this, I'm handing over to the co-chair, Christian Tamburini.
Thank you, Sylvia. With the transition, I continue the webinar since time passes quickly. So our brief lays out recommendations across 3 key domains. The first one, policy and management. The second one, research and monitoring. The third is about capacity building in ocean and literacy. In the following slide, I will show you the 10 recommendations we distilled out from our review and discussion. We develop smart outcomes, clear metrics, and we suggest a timeline to leave as little ambiguity as possible about the urgency to act. Finally, we suggest targeting the stakeholders we need to help getting this job done and to ensuring that the deep sea has a chance to withdraw the pressures. Let's start with our first group, recommendation for policy and management to sustain ocean health for future generations. Recommendation 1, is directed at the EU and European nations and calls on them to effectively govern human activities in the deep sea, both within the jurisdictions and in areas beyond national jurisdiction. The desired outcome is that effective regulation are in place which directly address the impact of this activity on deep sea ecosystem. Our metric for success here is the entry into force and EU-wide ratification of the BBNJ agreement within 1 year, followed by ongoing effort to enforce the agreement and align national policy accordingly by 2030. We also aim for continuous inclusion of deep sea considerations in broader ocean governance frameworks. Recommendation 2 targets international science policy initiatives such as IPOS, DOSI, GSAMP, and UNESCO IUC. We recommend establishing an independent, multidisciplinary international scientific committee tasked with advising on sustainability and protection of deep sea ecosystems. The key outcome is the formation of this committee, which should begin providing guidance for funding scientific projects and identifying areas for protection and monitoring. Success will be measured by the launch of scientific projects within the second year and the identification of protected and monitoring areas by 2029, in line with the 30 by 30 framework. The committee should be in place within 1 year. Recommendation 3 involved contributing to the development and implementation of standardized environmental impact assessment methodologies for the deep sea. The target stakeholders here include international science policy platforms, along with EU and international regulators. We aim to have these methodologies developed within 5 years, integrated into research frameworks, and adopted in international regulation within 10 years. Recommendation 6 is to launch large-scale and long-term multidisciplinary natural sciences projects targeting national and EU research funders. This project should focus on advancing knowledge in geological, physical, biological, and biochemical deep sea processes. We propose at least 5 10 years projects to be initiated within 3 to 5 years, with a target of publishing over 100 peer-reviewed scientific papers for good duration. Recommendation 7 involve supporting research in critical deep sea research areas. Funders should focus on genomics and taxonomy, climate-related species adaptation, synergistic impacts, the biological carbon pump, meridional overturning circulation changes, and subsea floor processes. This recommendation is continuous and will be regularly updated by the proposed International Scientific Committee. Our final group of recommendations focus on global capacity building. Recommendation 8 encourages international cooperation, especially through organizations like UNESCO IOC, to expand education, training, and research opportunities for scientists worldwide, particularly in underrepresented regions. The goal is to launch co-design research projects soon after the BBNJ Treaty enters into force, and no later than 2026, with sustained effort beyond 2030. Recommendation 9 continues this theme, emphasizing marine technology transfer and the development of training programs. The same timeline, initiation by 2026 and continuous support beyond the ocean decades. Our metric is a 50% increase in deep sea research initiatives by underrepresented nations. Recommendation 10 called for the continued promotion of the FAIR data principle, that is making deep sea data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Our goal is a full adoption of FAIR compliant data system across all European research institutions and 100% accessibility of deep sea data by 2030. These recommendations not only support the UN Decade of Ocean Science, but align with the EU mission for ocean restoration and sustainable development goals. They emphasize a collaborative, inclusive, and scientifically informed path forward. To close, I want to bring us back to the central message of this presentation. We can't sustainably use and protect what we do not understand, as Sylvia said. The deep sea is vast, complex, and still largely invisible to decision makers. Yet it is vital to the ocean health and by extension to know how. That's why we must act across three key fronts. Policy, bring deep sea management and protection into practice. Translate international agreements like the BBNJ into real action. Science, deepen our understanding of deep sea biodiversity, ecosystems, and function across time and space. For capacity and literacy, equip the next generation of scientists and raise global awareness of the deep sea role in ocean and planetary health. You can download the Future Science Brief from the EUMB website, and we encourage you to share it, cite it, and use it to spark discussion and decision in your field, your institutions, and your country. The deep sea cannot speak for itself, but we can. Thank you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sylvia and Christian. That's very good. So now we will move to our next presentation. And if I'm not wrong, it is Charlotte Selpin, who is the Senior Legal Officer from the Division of Ocean Affairs and Law of the Sea of the Office of Legal Affairs of the UN. So Charlotte, you are welcome, and maybe you can share your screen.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation while I set this up. Again, thank you to the European Marine Board for inviting DOALOS to raise awareness about the agreement. Let me see if this works.
Now it looks good.
It good? Okay, great.
Thanks.
So first of all, sorry, I'm just trying to, so what I want to do here today is essentially to provide you with really some contextual information. I won't comment on the content of the publication that is launched today and that was just presented, but it's really just to provide contextual information on how science is integrated into the BBNJ agreement. And I should have mentioned, by the way, before I started, that for those of you who are not familiar with DOALOS, or the Division for Ocean Affairs and the Law of the Sea, it is the unit of the UN that provides secretariat for the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, the United Nations Fish Stocks Agreement, as well as on an interim basis, the BBNJ agreement. So the adoption of the BBNJ agreement in June 2023 was really hailed as a historic achievement among states, civil society, and the media, and with reason. Because this is the first cross-sectoral ocean-related treaty in decades after the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Before I get into the focus of this presentation, let me recall some of the basics, starting with the current status of the agreement. As was mentioned earlier, the agreement requires 60 ratifications to enter into force. Sorry, I don't know why this is going ahead of me. And you can see on this slide that as of today, we have received, or the agreement has received 112 signatures, and 21 of the signatories have now also ratified the agreement. So another 39 ratifications are required for the agreement to enter into force. Another basic, the BBNJ agreement, has become the third implementing agreement to the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and as such, it must be interpreted and applied in the context of and in a manner that is consistent with UNCLOS. I also wish to recall that the agreement applies to areas beyond national jurisdiction, or ABNJ, as we often hear, which include 2 maritime zones which are defined in UNCLOS. The first is the high seas, which include all parts of the seas that are not included in the exclusive economic zone, the territorial sea, or the internal waters of a state, or in the archipelagic waters of an archipelagic state. And the second is the international seabed area, also known as the area with a capital A. And this is the seabed and ocean floor and subsoil thereof beyond the limits of national jurisdiction. So as you would therefore understand, the term High Seas Treaty, which is often used to refer to the agreement, is really not appropriate, as this only refers to one of the 2 maritime zones that are covered by the agreement. And it was very interesting in the previous presentation to hear the scientific definition of what the deep sea is. And I should mention that there is no legal definition of the deep sea. So now, what is in the agreement? The agreement addresses a package of 4 key issues under the overall objective of ensuring the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. It really is an agreement that is grounded in science. And in fact, science and related terms are mentioned more than 100 times throughout the agreement, indicating the extent to which the implementation of the agreement will have to be grounded in science and include scientific information. The use of the best available science and scientific information and the use of relevant traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and local communities where available are among the general principles and approaches that would guide the implementation of the agreement. So now, looking in more details at the 4 elements of the package, and I will spend a little bit more time on this slide. So first, the agreement sets up a framework for the fair and equitable sharing of both monetary and non-monetary benefits arising from activities with respect to marine genetic resources of areas beyond national jurisdiction and digital sequence information on such resources. One of the objectives of this framework is the generation of knowledge, scientific understanding, and technological innovation, including through the development and conduct of marine scientific research. I should also mention that non-monetary benefits are to be shared in the form of access to samples and digital sequence information, open access to scientific data, capacity building and transfer of marine technology, and increased technical and scientific cooperation, among others. Now, looking at the second element of the package, the agreement provides for procedures for the establishment and implementation of area-based management tools, including marine protected areas in areas beyond national jurisdiction. The scientific community is identified among the stakeholders that will have to be consulted in the development and assessments of proposals regarding the establishment of such tools. The agreement also includes in one of its annexes a set of indicative criteria for the identification of areas, most of which will have to be assessed from a scientific perspective. Science will therefore be fundamental in the advice of the scientific and technical body and the decision-making by the Conference of the Parties on such tools, as well as their implementation, monitoring, and review. Third, looking at the third element of the package, the agreement further operationalizes the provisions of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea on environmental impact assessments for areas beyond national jurisdiction. And in that context, it establishes processes, thresholds, and other requirements for conducting and reporting assessments by parties. In this context, science will, of course, also be vital in informing the conduct and the consultations on such assessments, decisions by parties on planned activities, and the relevant work of the Conference of the Parties and the scientific and technical bodies on these issues, including the development of standards and guidelines on a number of aspects. Again, the scientific community is identified as one of the stakeholders in the public notification and consultation process in relation to environmental impact assessments. Fourth, and last but not least, the agreement provides for the obligation of parties to cooperate in capacity building and the transfer of marine technology, and it sets out various modalities to that end. Objectives of these provisions include to develop marine scientific and technological capacity, including with respect to research, and to increase, disseminate, and share knowledge. The indicative and non-exhaustive list of types of capacity building and transfer of marine technology that are contained in the agreement include, for example, the sharing of relevant data, information, knowledge, and research, including the sharing of marine scientific and technological knowledge, information dissemination and awareness raising, including with regard to marine scientific research, marine sciences, and related marine operations and services, and the development and strengthening of human resource capabilities and of technical expertise through exchanges, research collaboration, and the development of joint scientific research projects. The agreement also addresses a number of cross-cutting issues, such as its relationship with relevant legal instruments and frameworks and relevant global, regional, sub-regional, and sectoral bodies, as well as institutional arrangements. Due to time constraints, I will really only focus today on the institutional arrangements to highlight that the agreement establishes a number of bodies, including a Conference of the Parties and other specialized bodies under the Conference of the Parties, and these include a Scientific and Technical Body, or STB, which will provide scientific and technical advice to the Conference of the Parties. The composition of the Scientific and Technical Body will take into account, among others, the need for multidisciplinary expertise, including relevant scientific and technical expertise and expertise in relevant traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and local communities. So you can see again that the agreement, and it's one of its innovative features, also makes sure to integrate traditional knowledge as part of the scientific input. Last but not least on this point, the clearinghouse mechanism that is established under the agreement will consist primarily of an open access platform, which will facilitate, among others, the dissemination of data and information and international scientific and technical cooperation and coordination. So now looking at the next steps in the life of the agreement, it will remain open for signature until the 20th of September this year, and it will enter into force 120 days after the deposit of the 60th instrument of ratification, approval, acceptance, or accession. The first meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the agreement will be convened no later than 1 year after the entry into force of the agreement, and there is a very strong push to have the required 60 instruments by the UN Oceans Conference in June this year, which could possibly mean, if that happens, that the agreement may enter into force by the end of this year, and the first meeting of the Conference of the Parties may have to be convened in 2026. Meanwhile, the UN General Assembly has established a preparatory commission to prepare for the entry into force of the agreement and the convening of the first meeting of the Conference of the Parties. And the first meeting of the PrepCom will be held over the next 2 weeks in New York, starting on Monday. DOALOS will also continue to promote a better understanding of the agreement and prepare for the entry into force in response to requests of the General Assembly. This takes me to the end of this presentation. If you want more information on the agreement, I invite you to check the website of the agreement, which includes background information, historical perspectives, as well as ongoing developments, including the activities of our division to promote a better understanding of the agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. That was very interesting, and it really sets the boundaries and the scene for our discussions later. Okay, so now we are going to have the response from the European Commission. I will just say here that we have sent pre-versions of this document, pre-release versions to the European Commission and to Ricardo, who will be speaking later, so they've had a chance to read it, and they will now give us their responses. So Ariana will start off there. Ariana sorry.
Don't worry.
Who is the International Relations Officer from the Directorate General for Maritime Affairs and Fisheries of the European Commission. So Ariana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sheila. So it's Arianna Broggiato. Thank you, no worries. Thank you to all the participants and the speakers. I hope you hear me well. I would like to thank the European Marine Board for this kind of invitation. I will try, of course, to address at my best a response on behalf of the European Commission to this magnificent scientific brief. In 10 minutes, it will be difficult, so we'll focus on few points that we appreciate very much. So starting from welcoming, of course, this brief, because we share the importance of this vulnerable ecosystem, the deep sea, and also the efforts to improve knowledge, scientific knowledge of these important ecosystems. We also appreciate very much the alignment of the brief with the Mission Ocean objective of the European Union, which is restore ocean and waters, and also we appreciate very much the recommendation that are coming from this brief. And I would like to tackle just one that was mentioned by a previous speaker on the ratification of the BBNJ agreement. I just would like to update you that the EU has been ready to ratify the agreement for some months. So we've finalized all the internal procedure, but we are waiting for some more EU member states to ratify the agreement together with us before the UNOC conference. So in a couple of months, the EU and the other 12 or more EU member states will ratify the agreement. So we are very pleased to announce this. Another feature that is, in my personal opinion, very important in this brief is the geographical scope, which is kind of cross-cutting between within and beyond national jurisdiction, as highlighted by the speakers before. So, and I'm also very happy to come after Charlotte Salpan, who set the scene perfectly about the BBNJ agreement. I appreciate the scientific definition of a deep sea, and so the fact that we are looking at this ecosystem as a whole, and with a holistic approach, which is very important from a scientific point of view, because as previous speakers said, we cannot protect what we don't know. I would also add that we cannot protect what we don't understand, and the ocean has no legal boundaries. I mean, for legal scholars, of course, and for the international law, it has, but scientifically it doesn't recognize the boundaries. So it's also very important to have this holistic approach. And I make a link with this, with the fact that the EU is working on this holistic approach to work on the Ocean Pact that you might have heard lately, which is one of the priority of a new commissioner. And so the Ocean Pact will be focusing on six different strategic priorities, among which there are restoring the ocean health through integrated governance and protection, also advancing ocean research and innovation, and also the EU ocean diplomacy. So we will be focusing on strengthening international ocean governance through ocean diplomacy, and also strengthening the funding of European research. I would like also to go deeper in one of the elements of the BBNJ agreement, because the scientific brief focused on the fact that the deep sea ecosystem has a role in human health, and there was a strong mentioning of new biochemicals and possible pharmaceutical products and biodiscovery. And as Charlotte already explained, there is a strong component of science in the BBNJ agreement. And I would like to stress that one chapter of the agreement, which is on marine genetic resources, and one chapter is on capacity building. And the MGR chapter, the marine genetic resources chapter, has also put the strength on the scientific collaboration, as it was already said, through the sharing of benefit and certain benefits. But it was also important the philosophical approach that this chapter tried to convey through the objective of this chapter, and the fact that the research on marine genetic resources will be very crucial for setting the baseline for environmental impact assessment, and also for good area-based management tools decision taken by the policy decisor of the parties. So another element of this focusing on science of the BBNJ agreement is important to see how the scientific community with whom we collaborate, we attend workshops, and we try to work on prepare the implementation of the agreement, is that they see a twofold possible role for the scientific community in the agreement, which is definitely implementing, so having to abide to the new rules, so for example the notification system, but also seeing the agreement as an opportunity to have more standardization of their best practices, for example, to have more scientific collaboration in with all the different regions of the world, and also to tackle the scientific gaps that are also underlined by this scientific brief that I had the pleasure to look at. And also I would like to mention that the BBNJ agreement is probably the only agreement that refers to the FAIR principle of data management, and also to data management plan. And that, as Charlotte Salpano already said, one of the main non-monetary beneficiaries is to share the data and sample. And as you know, the EU has been working a lot on open science and open data policy. So this is perfectly in line with the EU in terms of digital sequence information. But in terms of samples, I think the BBNJ agreement is going even farther, and it's a very innovative beneficiary to have samples available for all the scientific community worldwide, which is very important also to leveling the playing field and to tackle these scientific different gaps that we have around the world. I would like also to to mention another initiative of the European Union in terms of ocean literacy. So in 2020, we created the EU for Ocean Coalition, which now have 1,200 members, which is working a lot on ocean literacy, which is also very important in terms of raising awareness of the importance of the ocean and its vulnerable ecosystem, like the deep sea. And just to close, I would like to mention one project of Horizon Europe, which is the Trident project, which is not mentioned in the brief, which might give you some food for thoughts for the future, in the sense that it's a new project started, I think, a year and a half ago. And the aim of the project is to set up new technology tools for deep sea impact assessment. So it's very important. It was framed in the context of international deep sea mining in terms of monitoring and monitoring exploration, of course, not exploitation, which is not happening, but in terms of monitoring all the scientific work that is done at the level of exploration. And so it's a 5 or 6 years project. So in few years, we will have available new technologies for this kind of monitoring in this ecosystem, which is very difficult to monitor, of course. So I would like to thank again for giving me the opportunity to provide some inputs, and I'm available for questions here and also online via email if you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Arianna. Okay, then our final intervention before we can get some questions is from Ricardo Serra Santos. He will give a response from the international community. Ricardo is the co-chair of, as I said, of the International Scientific Committee that has done a global deep sea consultation for the Towards IPOS project. And he is emeritus researcher from the Institute of Okeanos from the University of the Azores. So Ricardo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Are you listening to me well?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay.
But
okay, thank you. Yeah?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Go for it.
Okay. So thank you. It's great to be part of this conversation today, in fact, and I thank you your kind invitation. And let me acknowledge the European Marine Board and thank Sheila, Angela, and Fiona for their roles and ongoing work. It's a pleasure, it's a great pleasure to reconnect with you, even if it is virtually. I appreciate the opportunity to share the panel with Sylvia, Christian, Charlotte, and Arianna that I compliment, and the members of the European Marine Board Working Group on Deep Sea and Ocean Health. And to everyone who is joining us on Zoom, and I count around 160, thank you for taking the time to part of this discussion. Slide 2, please. Slide 2, please. I still remember speaking at the launch of the European Marine Board position paper number 12, Delving Deeper, back in 2015 at University of Aveiro. And now, 10 years after, yes, even if you are on Zoom, I'm honored to be back for the launch of the Deep Sea as a future science brief, which, fun fact, also happens to be number 12 of another series, of course. Now, slide number 3, please. So between 2015 and 2025, a lot has changed in how we explore, understand, and manage the deep sea. There are 3 areas that I want to focus on today: how we understand ecosystems, how we govern the deep ocean, and how we are coming to terms with the impacts we are having. First, our understanding of deep sea ecosystems has really improved, thanks to amazing tools like underwater drones, gene sequencing, satellite data, and big models. Back in 2015, the European Marine Board told us how little we knew about deep sea life. Now, in 2025, we have a clear picture of how it supports the planet through climate regulation, carbon storage, and nutrient cycles. But let's be honest, there is still a lot we don't know, especially about species adapt and what is going on under the seafloor. On the governance side, the BBNG agreement was a big step, as we have seen here today, bringing more coordination and international cooperation. But as the European Marine Board keeps reminding us, deep sea governance is still all over the place. It's complex, fragmented, and not nearly strong enough. Meanwhile, the pressures keep building: mining, carbon removal, offshore energy. These aren't new, but they are gaining speed. And with that, the need of smart, cautious, science-based decision making is more urgent than ever. The European Marine Board puts it plainly: the threats to the deep sea are piling up, and they interacted in unpredictable ways. So yes, we have made progress, but not nearly enough. We still don't have the kind of long-term, large-scale monitoring we need. Science isn't being funded at the level this moment demands, and enforcement still way too weak, especially out in international waters. Slide number 4, please. It's interesting to see that OECD is taking a similar approach to the ocean economy as the European Marine Board. They put out their 2030 outlook back in 2016. And just now, a few days ago, I believe, 2025, they have published a new looking ahead to 2050. It's a good moment to step back and think about these parallel efforts, how they align, and what we can learn from both. Slide number 5, please. The OECD last report kicks off with a pretty stark reminder. Only about 25% of the ocean floor has been mapped. That tells you just how much of the deep sea is still a mystery, and why it's so important to build up our scientific capacity and collaborate across borders before we rush in decisions we cannot take back. The report also stressed how critical the BBNJ Treaty is. Without global rules that actually work together, rising competition and investment, especially in things like seabed mining, could seriously undercut any hope of long-term sustainability. They also warn that if we are not careful, mining could set off chain reactions about marine systems and ocean economies. One more thing, the report points out something we all feel: science funding, and it also joins the European Marine Board, isn't keeping up. Ocean challenges are getting more complex, more urgent, and yet enforcement remains fragile, especially in areas outside national control. So the bottom line is, if you want sustainable ocean economy, we need to bring together ambition, science, and strong institutions. And that brings me to what I see as one of the biggest issues we face right now: deep sea mining. Slide 6, please. This is something we tackle head-on on the International Platform for Ocean Sustainability through our group, Global Deep Sea Consultation, whose scientific committee I had the honor of co-chairing with my colleague Elva Escobar from Mexico. We brought together 18 scientists from 15 countries and a mix of disciplines, with the guidance from Kelsey Barnhill, that is here today. I saw her in the list of attendees, and the support from Françoise Gale and Bruno David. We worked for 8 months to put together 2 key documents for the United Nations Ocean Conference in Nice. The first is a scientific proclamation. It lays out clearly and urgently the ecological, legal, social, and ethical risks of deep sea mining. It ends with a strong call that we need a moratorium. It could be 10, 15, or whatever number of years until it is needed, not to block progress, but to give science time to catch up and give society the chance to really consider the risks. Slide 7, please. The second document is Deep Sea Mining Decoded, the title. It's a question and answers that brings together voice from all over, lawyers, economists, indigenous leaders, artists, you name it. It reflects a wide range of perspectives, and it reminds us of something critical, that deep sea mining is not just about science or economics. It's about culture and values and ethics. And all of this is happening at a very tense time, a tense moment. We are watching wars unfolded in mineral-rich areas. We are seeing powerful leaders return to the stage, leaders who downplay science, promote fossil fuels, and push for more extraction, including from the deep sea. That puts international law, including the law of the sea, at risk. So let's be clear. Deep sea mining is not just policy. It is a symbolic frontier between two ways of seeing the world. One focused on short-term gain, the other committed to long-term care. Slide 8. And in the debate, language really matters. In blue economy circles, deep sea mining is often presented as rational, even inevitable, a sign of prudence, but let's not kid ourselves. Saying we can mine the unknown at scale without consequence, that's not caution, that's recklessness. All 6 documents I mentioned here today make the same point. Science, not speed, should lead the way. Short-term profit cannot come before long-term risk. The deep is ancient, immense, and still full of surprises. Just recently, scientists discovered ecosystems that might be producing something called dark oxygen, a process that we didn't even know existed before. So, no, we don't know enough to act like we are not in control. Let's move forward not with haste, but with reverence. Some places, some systems need to stay untouched, not just for research, but for meaning, for memory, and for generations to come. And let's keep our sense of wonder too, because the sea is not just a research bank. It's a living archive of Earth's history, a place of mystery, resilience, and beauty. What we choose to do or not to do at these depths will shape not just the ocean's future, but the moral depths of our civilization. Last slide, please. Immanuel Kant once asked why nature places beauty even in the deepest part of the ocean, where no human eye may ever see it. Maybe it's because some things have value in themselves. Let's not be the generation that cracked open the untouched fracture for a quick win. Let's be the ones who pause, protect, and choose a different way forward. And I believe that all these reports, these documents that I mentioned, the 6, have also show this feeling. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. Okay, so now we can go to the questions and answers. I will remind you that we have some of the working group members here, but also the speakers. And I see that we already have some questions. If you are going to write your questions there, it might also be useful to say who you're asking the question to, because there will be different questions to different people. But I will start with the first question that is by Jorge Cortes Nunes. Sorry, my pronunciation is always bad. From Costa Rica, who asks, how do small developing countries, how can they be part of this larger project? And more importantly, how are they able to explore their deep sea? I don't know if anybody here wants to have a go at answering that question. I think there was talk when Charlotte mentioned from the BBNJ that there is meant to be data exchange and so forth. But I see Sabine's sacrificed herself. Sabine, maybe also just tell people who you are and where you're from. Your background.
I'm Sabine Gollner, deep sea biologist from the NIOS in the Netherlands. And with regards to the question, how can basically also countries outside the European Union contribute and how can we work together? One of the recommendations that we made was also to co-design and co-develop projects. So really also have dedicated funding to work together on developing and carrying out projects. So this is one of the recommendations we give in the policy brief.
Thanks. Okay. And then the next, does anybody else want to answer that question?
Yeah, maybe very shortly. I think referring to the BBNJ agreement is a good one because it also includes the capacity building. And maybe also approaching UN organizations such as FAO or IEA or other ones, UNEP, that are having projects and larger programs in action already. So I think that's also a good way forward to really now do something while co-design programs. I think we are more and more aware that we cannot just helicopter somewhere and do our research, but that we really have to co-design to have a sustainable effect on the environment. I think that is becoming more and more clear. So while these are developed, I think that the UN organizations are probably a good short-term point to go.
Yeah. Ariana?
Yes, please. I just wanted to mention, thank you very much for the question, that the European Commission and DG INTPA for development has devoted last year in July a little bit less than 40 million euro for assistance to developing countries in definitely participating in international ocean governance and protection of the sea. So some of these are available for BBNJ related research activities and in general ocean. So I remain available via email to provide the contact details of the colleagues in INTPA. I know that we are working in the Pacific and maybe in the Caribbean, but I don't remember beyond this if there are other regions that will profit of this research money. Thank you.
Sabine, did you want to say something else as well?
Yeah, maybe if I can ask Ariana a question with regards to, because there's a lot of ongoing also projects and funding. What is the percentage that would really dedicate or dedicated projects that would go to the deep sea? For example, if you from the project you just mentioned, do you know about this, or how we could raise more awareness to also include deep sea? So we have it's 90% of the ocean. There's a lot of also a lot of ocean research ongoing, also collaboration. But I think the issue that we face with deep sea research is that it's also very expensive, and it makes it even more difficult to bring people together. Would you have any advice on that, or any? That's basically my question to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sabine. I will try to address. In terms of percentage, it's always very difficult to get to a percentage of big funds that will to see where they will be allocated. So I'm in no position to answer on this. Definitely, I would say that for certain region, the deep sea are their backyard. So if we are concentrating on certain of this region, it's more likely that the deep sea has a visible, let's say, a visible place in the portfolio of the funds that are allocated. As a suggestion, I mean, yes, raising awareness is the first point. But I think that, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm starting from a starting point of working closely with deep sea scientific community. So I'm very aware of the vulnerability of this ecosystem and the need to have more knowledge. But yes, experience like ocean literacy and try to raise awareness of citizens is crucial, so the citizen can raise awareness of policymakers as well. I will think about if I have more suggestion. I will get in touch with you. Thank you. It's a good question, but at the moment I'm not able to answer more.
Okay.
Thank you.
So maybe we should go back to the questions. I see that Maria Baker from DOSI just thanked us. So thank you very much, Maria. We can read that later. And then there is also a question from Iska, I can't remember, Klimasokaita, who is quite a very long question, but it's often about deep sea science. So I'm gonna about social science. I'm going to read the whole thing because otherwise I'm going to misrepresent it. Again, thank you for the detailed informative presentation. It's clear how much work went into it, saying that they are social scientists and specifically political scientists. So to them, it is worrying that we might not be dealing with the challenges described in social science studies, such as science and technology studies. So, for example, one of the discussions is that literature is about how more knowledge can lead to more complexity and uncertainty, making decision-making more challenging. Another question is that literature relates to topics such as undone science, which is described by David Hess. I don't really understand that. Deep sea science is often not always shaped by political and industrial interests. So it's a lot of knowledge that is produced. So a lot of knowledge that is produced is following those always shaped by political and industry, shaped by political needs, sorry. So who fills the gaps and what is ignored? That's a very good question. And then they say, we see, for example, some of the civil society commissioned science in the deep sea as a result. And all in all, the disconnect between social and natural challenges in the deep sea research reproduces the invisible and highly problematic issues. So, the question. It's important to ask what kinds of management and governance research are we doing and not doing in this regard. So I guess to summarize, how much social science thought has really gone into this policy brief, and have we really asked these questions when we addressed these, when we wrote this document? I'm not sure if somebody wants to have a go. I'm sorry, I've been as clear as mud in my question raising. Sylvia.
Well, I think thank you for asking the question, Aziz. I think we have realized halfway through working on the brief that we do have not the very best representation of scientists. So one of them is really, as I mentioned in my introduction, actually, that we underestimated the legal role, right? So that caused a lot of work for Brian. Luckily, we had one. We also realized that we have not have a good representation of the social sciences. So we try to touch with the knowledge the group had. We also halfway through could not extend the working group, but we realized that we could have done a better job with that respect on social sciences. So mea culpa for that. We probably will have another science brief in 10 years, but you should not wait so long for getting actually answers. It is an important aspect, and
yeah,
maybe somebody else can also say something.
I'm not seeing anybody jumping, but I might actually mention that this is something that at the Marine Board level we have been very aware of, that it is really something that's not done very much. It's very hard to integrate natural sciences and social sciences. We have been advocating for it since one of our previous documents, Navigate the Future 5, which came out about 5 years ago. And we're saying it again in our newest documents. In fact, we often ask for really more social understanding of the social impacts of our research. So this is something that's really hard to do, and we must do better. But I think having these kinds of questions pointed out is always helpful, and I think that we will take that on board for future work. Maybe we can go to the next question. Sylvia, I see it is for you.
Sorry, Sheila.
Sorry, Christian, yeah.
Just to add 2 points on that, we try in France with the CNRS to do a transdisciplinary approach of that, and in parallel with the brief, I realized myself that the legal party of for the deep sea was very important, and this have given me the possibility to discuss with other, because social research is so large that we need time to understand and to share with us. So it's a, but with the deep sea, for me, it was very far away from our occupation, but I was wrong. And I think, and I'm happy to be that I was wrong, is the fact that we can share information with anthropogenic science, with political science, economics, and this is a long time to have the same definition. For example, the definition of the deep sea from a legal point of view, of a science point of view, it's something difficult, and we try to do something in this EMB report, and we are trying to write a position paper on that. So I think it's the time, clearly, to go on this way, and something I think it's important also is to enhance the public understanding and the emotional connection to the deep sea, because this is a very big difficulty with the deep sea. It's far away of years, and people don't care, people that don't know, and we have to be more and more involved in art and science, for example. Also, is another way. So I have no answers, clear answers, but I know that we have to do in this way.
Yeah. Thanks, Christian. Okay, Ellen?
Okay, thank you. Ellen Pape from Ghent University in Belgium. I just wanted to add very quickly that some of these aspects have already been included in projects like DeepRest, Biodiversa project, and also the JPI Oceans project, Mining Impact 3, will also include also aspects like art and indeed societal considerations. So we are starting to do that, and I'm not aware, maybe there are other projects out there who already tackled this, but there is already some progress on this front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's very different from the question that was asked about the kinds of sort of social science that we do. I think we kind of, these are two different things, but okay, I don't think we will address that now. Okay, so going forward, we have the next question is specifically for Sylvia, but maybe others can also respond. This is from Chris Smith from HCMR in Greece. He asks, how do we resolve the need to manage the deep sea in Europe, but consideration that the nature restoration regulation only extends to 1,000 meter depth? I'm
glad to open this question to all.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has an answer to that. I guess managing the deep sea is something that needs to happen, and the nature restoration law is, you know, it's just come out, so I don't think we can really answer to that. I don't know. Ariana, if you guys have had that question at the DG Mare, or I guess it would be
Well,
the environment thing anyway, so it wouldn't really be your DG that deals with this. But it's a question that we can take to them, actually. That's a good question to take forward to the
that's also a good piece of information which I was not aware, this geographical scope of this legislation. So yes, I was not involved in the process of arriving to the legislation, so I'm not aware of this. I guess there are issues of EU competence and EU territories into the choice that the legislator has made. But I will dig into it. It's a very interesting, I would say, loophole and gap, of course, because as I said in my presentation, I like the approach of a scientific brief uh, to look at deep sea, which wherever it is. I mean, the deep sea is within and beyond, and we need to acknowledge this. Thank you.
All right, Chris, we will take that forward and ask the question for you later. Okay, moving forward, I think we don't have huge amounts of time left, but we have a few more questions. So Matthew Gianni asks whether the Marine Board has made recommendations, and I'm assuming he asks in this context or in other contexts, whether we've made any recommendations to address shortcomings of the environmental impact assessments done for deep sea fisheries in both EU waters and on the high seas. I can tell you that Sylvia can answer the question for the deep sea document, but we have not written any other documents that were specifically on EIAs, nor do we really do a lot of work on fisheries specifically. But Sylvia, maybe you want to address it specifically for this document.
Yes, I can in principle just corroborate what you just said. We have not gone into any detail about fisheries. So we kept it really at a general scientific and ecosystem approach, and not too much on the fisheries. Sabina, do you want to say something?
Yeah, probably probably what we kind of discussed also whilst writing the brief is also that, of course, there are different EIAs already out. So be it for fisheries, be it the ones that are currently developed for deep sea mining, be it the need to have something for MCDR. So I think it would be excellent to really like put these also next to each other, see what they have in common, what they don't have in common, to come up with probably with more robust ones in the future. So I think it's very good what Matthew also addresses, like to have a look like at these different EIAs, and to probably also use this as a chance to then probably also modify the ones that are currently existing to make them better and more robust.
Thanks. All right, so the next question is from Wawit Kumari from the University of Copenhagen. He asks, do you have any advice for early career scientists that is interested in to be involved in submersible or ROV expeditions to study deep sea marine systems or marine sea life?
I'm happy to take that. I think my advice would be that he should do a master's or a PhD really in a subject that involves these tools like hydrothermal vents or anything with deep sea, because you do need to get down there. So enrolling in one of those study programs, I think, is a good way to go. And other than that, I think if you're more on the technical side, there are always positions becoming vacant in teams, in ROF teams or other teams. So I think really keeping the eye open, making yourself aware of which institute has got these tools, and then keeping an eye on vacancies. I think that is probably the way forward. Of course, there are not very many ROVs, so it will not be a huge list of of institutions you will have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, thank you. Then Juan Ronco. Hi, Juan. It's nice to see you virtually again. His question is about some coastal states have huge deep sea areas under their jurisdiction or have placed claims on vast areas of the deep sea, so extending the continental shelf. How do we ensure that international protection and conservation efforts are not undone by national policies to exploit the deep sea? Very good question, Bon. And one that I suspect you were meant to be answering when you were in DG Mare before. Anybody?
Maybe just repeating, it is a very good question. And I think all of us sitting here who care for the deep sea have asked this question before. So how can we prevent actually that industries or nations are taking advantage of this heritage of human kind, right? But maybe Bluan is our legal expert. She probably has got
right now.
I don't know, because it's a quite hard question to answer, but as Charlotte and Arianna already mentioned, it's very important to respect and to ensure that states will ratify the BBNJ treaty, and therefore afterwards to be sure that compliance and enforcement are also respected. Promoting ecosystem-based management is also key, applying precautionary principle, for instance, ecosystem approach, and also for sure fostering international cooperation and coordination between existing frameworks and bodies. So it's a very hard, endeavor, but it might be feasible. And Charlotte might have some other idea. It's just like this.
I think, Ricardo, did you want to add something, Ricardo?
Yes, if you don't mind. We can see also the reverse side. We had two good examples, recent examples. Is in Norway, there was a resolution or something to go on mining on the deep sea, and it was retreated again. So the government put it back. And in Portugal, there was a recent approval on the national parliament for a moratorium until 2050. So protecting national waters. Of course, the moratorium is for national waters, including the extended continental shelf. So it's impossible that you say if a country, but the big dangers till now is in international waters. I think that eventually national waters is better protected than international waters. That's what we have seen up to now. And I'm really afraid of the pressures that are being done on Clarion, Clapperton, and if a big country wants to authorize the industry to go there, they will go. I don't know how to solve these issues, but my point is that see also the other way, better protection eventually in national waters than international waters at this moment.
Okay. Thanks, Ricardo. Blue, and I'm assuming your hand's still raised from before. Okay, I think Kate has a comment, but I don't think it's a question. The next question that I think is actually a question is Angelo
Charlotte would like
I
to
think
say
Charlotte
something.
Sorry, Charlotte, go for it. Sorry, I missed you.
It's okay, and very quickly, because unfortunately I have to leave for another meeting, but I just wanted to follow up on the question on coastal states and that Bloen already alluded to. I think there's a lot of hopes that are being put to the BBNJ agreement. I think we need to manage expectations there. I don't think it will necessarily fix all the issues, but I do want to remind everyone that the BBNJ agreement comes into a pre-existing framework, and that is the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. There are already obligations within UNCLOS, in its part 12 in particular, on the protection and preservation of the marine environment, which does require states, including within and beyond national jurisdiction, but here I'm focusing on within national jurisdiction, to take the necessary measures to protect and preserve the marine environment. So yes, there is a possibility under UNCLOS to have the limits of the continental shelf recognized as being beyond 200 nautical miles. But that's not necessarily just for the purpose of exploitation. I mean, that also comes with rights, obviously, to exploit the natural resources in those zones, but it also comes with obligations, including to protect and preserve the marine environment from various sources. So I just wanted to put this out there as a reminder, just so that we don't put all our hopes into the BBNJ agreement. There's still a lot that can be done under UNCLOS. Thank you. And with that, I have to leave you. Congratulations, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Charlotte.
Thank you for joining.
Very good to have the intervention. So I think we will have one last question. Angelo Maggiore from the European Food Safety Authority asks whether we also considered potential implications of expanding ocean uses like deep sea mining, sea transport and trade, energy production, on the aspects potentially relevant to this safety of food and feed from the oceans. So I think his question, I'm not sure if it really pertains to the deep sea specifically. If you understand it that way, it would be good to have an answer from you, Sylvia. So, you know, did we also include things like other uses of the deep sea and how it might impact the ecosystem services that we have from the food from the deep sea, I think is what he's asking. I see Sabine nodding her head, so I'm not sure if you have an answer.
Yeah, I think like what we included in the brief, in the policy brief, is also like the different future uses that we see, and also that they also can interfere. And it's not like the main topic of the policy brief, but I think what we also mentioned, and also some researchers, of course, out there, is that probably there could be interference of, for example, deep seabed mining plumes, sound, and impacts on fisheries. So we do address these cumulative and synergistic effects, and I think that's something we really have to keep in mind. Whatever, you know, something new is started, whatever impacts there are, that they will, add up on each other and probably even, become in the end bigger. So it is, probably we address it with the synergistic and cumulative effects, but indeed, I think you could like make an own policy brief on this topic.
Yeah. Okay, so I think there's only one other question from Kate, who it's not really a question, just to mention that EMODnet is very interested in working with modeling with data from the deep sea, and you know, for it to be truly fair data, you know, it has to be open access. And she just wants to thank you guys for the policy brief. So I think with that, we probably do need to close now. I will give the floor. If you have any more questions, you can always send them to us. We will try and get them answered for you. But I will ask Fiona to do a quick summary, and maybe I will just while you do that, Fiona, just put the slide up with the
link to the future science brief. Okay, Thank you so much, Sheila. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the coordinating authors, Sylvia Sander and Christian Tamburini, in addition to all of the expert working group members for the excellent work they have undertaken on the future science brief and deep sea research management, research and management needs. So we've heard from the speakers this afternoon with really stark clarity the context, complexity and potential obstacles to protecting and preserving our deep ocean. This document offers a set of 10 guiding principles in policy and management needs, research and monitoring requirements, and capacity building and ocean literacy actions, which offer us a clearly defined path forward. And I really appreciate the metric-bound targets and outcomes in the report, which will allow us to track performance against the recommendations therein. So we're at an important juncture for the Agreement on Marine Biodiversity of Areas Beyond National Jurisdiction, as Charlotte Salpam mentioned, in the first cross-sectoral ocean treaty in many years. We have heard from Professor Sandra and Dr. Tamburini how global momentum is growing. The effective implementation of the BBNJ agreement, the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, and the EU's mission to restore ocean and waters by 2030 all provide new opportunities for coordinated interventions and international cooperation and collaboration for this vulnerable ecosystem. We welcome the intervention from Adriana Broggiato relating to the EC advancing ocean research and innovation investments and strengthening ocean diplomacy, amongst other elements. And we're very fortunate to have had the wisdom of Ricardo Serasantos shared with us today, showing us the clear progress we've made over the last decade. And notwithstanding this, he's reinforced that we require further investment and we need to enforce important enforcement actions combined with enhanced governance for long-term planetary care. So I hope that each of us in our conversations in upcoming fora, whether that be at the European Maritime Days in Cork or in the margins of meetings at the 2025 UN Ocean Conference in Nice, that this European Marine Board Future Science Brief and the guidance contained therein will be referenced as a potential framework to advance our knowledge gaps. I wish to thank again all of the authors, to all of our speakers today for their insights and perspectives, to all of you online for your engagement and interest, to Professor Sheila Heymans, the EMB Secretariat, and especially Angel Muniz Pinella for his support to the working group and to the development of the brief thereout. And so I leave you with the main message from the document, that the deep sea and essential ecosystem functions and services it provides are inextricably linked with our own future and with the next generation. It is our ocean, our future, and our collective responsibility to manage it. So let's make 2025 the year to take ocean action. So access the document here. Thank you so much to everybody and goodbye.
Thank you very much, Fiona. And thank you all to all the speakers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for joining the
Bye.
session. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.